watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Great show tonight. I have two gentlemen that I greatly admire. Of course, Brian St. Nicholas, who's the governor's special assistant, actually in charge of healthcare, and also former director of Rev and Tax, now the insurance commissioner, Art Logan. Gentlemen, good evening. How you doing?
Buenas, good evening.
The federal government shut down, okay, was basically the very beginning of the shutdown was supposedly due to Obamacare and the implementation of Obamacare October 1st. That was the genesis of that. Now it's moving off, of course, to the debt ceiling. And Art, we know about debt ceilings, right? Yeah. Explain to us, because over the years, when they first implemented Obamacare, it was thousands of pages. We didn't know what was applicable to Guam, what was, what wasn't. You guys have dissected that. You come to the conclusion that it's really a lot of it is not implementable here in Guam. Again, a lot of the mandates and the funding not coming to Guam. And if we were to implement it, it'd be very, very, very costly, not just to the people of Guam, the government of Guam, but individuals as well.
Sure, I'll go and start off. When we compare things, whether it's objects or individuals, whatever, usually there's things that are similar. And when we talk about the states and Guam, the territories, with regard to Obamacare, most people, I think, well, we're going to get the same package as California, Iowa, et cetera. But the reality is we don't. The territories are treated very, very differently. We don't get the same amount of subsidies. In fact, we get very low subsidies. In some cases, we don't get any funding to carry out some of the provisions of Obamacare. I just wanted to go ahead and I'll start off with the health insurance exchange. We were discussing that earlier, Jess, and primarily that's a digital marketplace of sorts. So you would be able to go on. I'm Jess Lujan. I've got 15 kids, I make $80,000 a year, whatever, and I live here. And all this information is supposed to be gathered, and then a plan is supposed to be recommended for you.
So as you log on, this is supposed to come up and says, this is the plan, this is the bronze plan, is probably what we recommend for you based on your needs, a needs assessment basically, and your income level and things like that. This is probably what you need, and they make the recommendation. That's
You're
how
correct,
that exchange
or
works?
Medicaid, or an individual plan or something else. Now that was supposed to happen October 1st. That's the HIX, or Health Insurance Exchange. So that was one of the provisions or items that were to be provided. Unfortunately, with the help of Department of Rev and Tax and Art Logan's group, we had researched and determined that in order to provide this service, because the states were going to be subsidized and given monies for it, we weren't. It would cost the government of Guam approximately $74.6 million in advancce premium tax credits. So that's the money that's needed to fund this health insurance exchange.
Now, Art, again, when I was in the legislature and you were called as a tax man, I said, the worst guy to ask about any tax breaks is the tax man. Don't ask the tax man about tax breaks.
It's funding. No, you got to find the funding for this. And,
sure.
With the way the laws were written under the Affordable Care Act, the way they defined states, it didn't include the territories. So that includes like subsidies and stuff like that.
Sure.
But in the Public Health Service Act, all the reforms, the unconditional health, if you're healthy or you're not healthy, an insurance company cannot turn you down.
Okay.
Age 26 and below, coverage, raising it up from 18. All those costs are adding to the cost.
Although GovGuam insurance basically covers pre-existing conditions, right? And so now we're talking about pre-existing conditions outside, say, of GovGuam. Now that is not free. That is not free. Although now wherever the exchange may be, your pre-existing condition, you've had open heart, you've had a valve replacement, whatever it is. Basically, you look at high risk, right? You're high risk. Now you're with everybody else, but because you're high risk, your high risk is spread out over, and it's incumbent about a lot of people buying insurance, right?
Right. That's the individual mandate that didn't apply to Guam. So every individual living in Guam who's working needs to buy insurance, but that law doesn't apply to Guam. So let's say, for example, if you're single and you're working and you don't get insurance, the pool or the risk, the pool is not there for your premiums to pay for the people who are sick.
Okay. Okay.
So what happens is the rates, if we don't get the subsidies,
sure,
the rates are going to go up. The only way to pay for this is the insurance companies. They're here to make a profit. They're not here to lose money or to.
No, of course, and they're like any business. They're like any business,
right?
Yeah,
So of course they're going to raise the rates.
Sure.
And the reason why the states are not raising the rates probably as high is because they get all these subsidies. The exchange, for example, if you go to the exchange and they say you don't qualify because your income is not enough, though that exchange would send you to public health for Medicaid.
Okay.
If you have earnings and it's below the poverty level, then there's some advanced premium tax credit that you may apply for. But those credits in the states are given by the federal government when they file the federal returns. But here in Guam, we filed it to Guam, and the federal government's not going to reimburse us for that. So we're looking at $74 million in the hole just by implementing the exchange.
Now let's go back when you said to set up the exchange. Now, what again needs to be set up that's going to cost about $74 million? Explain to us the initial setup. What does that entail that is so costly? Because I mean, I've got the email and I've read, that definitely, I mean, we got to that is, again, besides the upgrade of rev and tax and also the system at I think it's public health as well, and maybe GMH. Now, systems have to be upgraded because agencies have to be communicating, right? I mean, actively, right?
Right. They have to interface, and there has to be interconnectivity. So the 74 million, I'll let Art talk about that because that's a calculation for the premium tax credit. But just to do what you were talking about, Jess, is going to be 30 to 50 million. And that's borne out by a study done with the U.S. Virgin Islands, a territory that's similar to Guam, less people, but just to get all that hardware, software, and the system set up would be 30 to 50 million. That's separate and apart from the 74 million that is every year.
It's every year.
Yeah, it's not just the first year. So the first year we're talking about, if we had to do all that, even at the low end for the infrastructure, 30 million plus 74, I mean $104 million the first year just to get the exchange running. And we haven't really implemented Obamacare. And by the way, that's an acceptable term. Even people in the Obama administration say Obamacare.
Obamacare, yeah.
Someone told me once, hey, that's very disparaging. I go, no, that's what they use as well. But so that amount of money would be there, whereas if we were a state, that would be provided by the federal government.
Okay. Now, let's, there's things, again, we opted out basically because we couldn't afford it. We're not getting subsidies. Out of the 74 million that you say that we were going to, that was going to be given to, I guess, distributed amongst the territories, right?
No. You're talking about two different things.
Two different things.
Yeah, there's $1 billion in funds that are given to the territories.
Okay.
Puerto Rico gets 925 million, and the rest of the 4 territories get the remainder, $75 million. And Guam's share is, I believe, $24 million.
$24 million.
Right. And that's over 6 years.
Over 6 years.
2014 to 2019. So you take that 24 divided by 6 years, and you get something like $3 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not enough. Not even for 1 year to sustain us. Yeah.
Not at all.
I tell you, we're going to take a quick break. Come back and we'll talk more about the exchange and what will be applicable in the Obamacare to Guam. Okay, be right back.